Welcome to the Trainwell podcast, inspiring you to move more, to get stronger, and have fun. I am Trainer Joey, along with my co-host, Trainer Darian, and today we talk to Trainer Derek about medical fitness. We dive into what medical fitness is. We talk about how to be flexible in your routines. We talk about how resistance training can be a great tool in helping out with chronic conditions and even pain, and also how to be your own scientist and tuning into your body with figuring out what works best for you.
Yeah, Derek is a personal trainer with over 10 years of experience and a background in medical and post-rehab fitness. He has worked with people in physical therapy clinics and cardiac and pulmonary rehab units, helping them to exercise with a wide range of medical conditions and injuries. He loves helping people rediscover their strength and capabilities no matter what conditions they may be living with. And that rang really true. You can really hear his passion in this episode. And honestly, I was really inspired after this episode. It's so like heartwarming to think about fitness and longevity and truly helping people get healthier, stronger bodies.
Derek was the man. We hope you guys enjoy the show as much as we did.
Okay, let's get it rolling. So Derek, cherry in a pit for the week or today, if your day is just crazy?
No, today's been good. Cherry in a pit. Cherry, we have like 6 acres and a bunch of woods, and we're very rural. We've been having both a mom and a baby moose and then a male moose come through our property, like actually pretty much for the past month. So it's actually been really cool to kind of watch them. Like the mom is like, their personalities are really different. It's really weird that I know this, but like the male is like kind of wily and like jumps around and is like a little more skittish, but the mom and the baby are just like, they're just chill. They'll just walk through, like they know they're like indestructible, and so they'll just look at you and like what are you gonna do about it? Like, I'm not gonna do anything. Like the other day I was running and I ran by her and she like stood up and stared at me, and I'm like, nope, I'm gone. Don't worry about me.
I got charged by a bull moose once.
Did you?
Yeah, it was during a 100K I did, and up in Gould, and it was 4 a.m, but there were a ton of us, so we thought we would scare them away. But anyways, I was coming down. I'm bombing down this hill, and I'm making all these noises. And there's this other guy behind me, and this other gal. Well, the gal like smoked past us, and she's the one who triggered it. I should like yell at her, but I never figured out who her name was. But then this big old bull comes out from middle of nowhere, and this is like right when it's starting to like get first light, and this bull just freaking like, there must have been mama or daddy bear or daddy moose, mama moose,
Yeah.
whatever, turned, and man, this thing just freaking. All I remember is that its skull was, and I've seen a lot of moose, but its skull was just like as big as this table, man, just monstrous. And we were down some switchbacks. Luckily, we were downhill, but it didn't charge me for long, maybe 10 paces or something like that. But we were long gone by that, and I'll never forget that because I peed my pants a little bit.
Seriously, like I tell everyone, like you just don't mess with moose. They know they're like indestructible. They know their place in the world, and they do not care.
They're big. They're bigger than horses, man.
And they're big. They are. So we have horses, and like the horses don't like the moose either. They'll go and they'll go stand away. Like they're like, nope, we're not doing that.
Did you pick your wife up on a horse for your first date?
I did not. So my wife is the horsewoman. She's a horsewoman through and through. So I had nothing to do with horses until I met her. So that has definitely been an experience, like definitely like learning more about that. But now a lot of our like summer weekends and stuff, we take the kids, we take the horses. Both my kids ride now, like, and we just go off on like trails and just go and hang out in nature.
Do you have quarter horses or Arabians, thoroughbreds?
So my wife rides mostly English. So
Nice.
right now, so we actually have a Mustang out of Wyoming. We've had him for 9 years. So he's getting older, but our kids will ride him. So he's a Mustang. So he's a combination of a little bit of who knows what. And then right now we actually have 2 fillies. So they'll be 2 years in April. And then they are both Frisian crosses. So the one is a Frisian Andalusian cross. They're called a Warlander. And then one is a Frisian quarter horse cross. So we're letting them grow up a little bit, and then my wife will start training them a little bit more this summer.
Darian, do you ride?
No, I don't know anything about this. I am from Pennsylvania. I don't know about horses. I mean, there's lots of horses here. Obviously, I live in an Amish community, not in an Amish community, but like a lot of Amish people live here. But I actually one summer, I'll tell a quick story. I did this like teen tour for like 6 weeks all along the west, like the west. And we went to Utah and we stayed on this ranch and we went on a horseback ride. And that was the first time I realized how terrified I was of horses. Like standing next to that thing, I was like, and the listeners don't know that I am only 5'1". I'm not even quite 5'1".
5'1"?
And I was, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm miniature. So I'm looking up at this horse and I'm like, no, I'm just not, no, this thing's huge. And it was acting weird, probably because it could sense my fear. And I was already nervous. And then like everyone's riding their horses, everyone in our little group, and it's all a bunch of teenagers. And I hear ahead some like yelling and I watch, and this guy is like, his saddle like spun around and he like got flung off this horse. I'm like, get me back to the ranch. I can't do it. So yeah, no horse riding for me. I've never seen a moose outside of like maybe a zoo or something. And yeah, but anyway, Derek, you never even got to tell us your pit.
Oh yeah, the pit. Well, my household's been sick for the last 2 weeks, so that's kind of been the big downer for December. Also, it gets dark at like 4 o'clock here still, so that's also a daily pit that we're working through.
Yeah, coming out of it though, thank goodness. I'm so
We
excited
are.
for the days to get longer.
Yeah, I know, because we're basically on the eastern part of like the Pacific time zone. So like come winter solstice, like I think the sun set at like 3:47 or something.
Oof,
It was
rough.
ridiculous.
All right, Derek, we're going to jump in, man. You ready?
Yep.
Because
Let's go.
And I want you to like enlighten one, Fotini Faye, because I've never heard the term medical fitness, and like we asked you, what you like to speak about, what really gets your go is medical fitness, injury rehab stuff, right? And so
Yeah.
walk us down the path of like what is medical fitness?
Yeah, so in terms of fitness, medical fitness is definitely on the newer end of things. That's for sure. So medical fitness is basically using fitness to help with chronic medical conditions, or like injury, like rehab and stuff. Especially in terms of like fitness professionals, like kind of bridging the gap between, like you can get into bridging the gap between like coming out of rehab, coming out of physical therapy, and then getting back to like a full fitness routine. So, but on the other end, it is also like dealing with, using fitness to improve diabetes, or using fitness to improve heart conditions, there's a lot of research on a very wide range from neurological disorders to inflammatory disorders, metabolic disorders. Like there's a lot of like really recent stuff that is showing like doing resistance training can be extremely beneficial. Especially, I think a really good one is, obviously, I think we've all worked with someone with diabetes, and seeing helping increase insulin sensitivity, and helping not only just weight loss too, but doing the resistance training to help increase strength and improve like blood sugar, stuff like that. Also, with heart conditions, improving heart strength, improving, improving your cardiovascular, improving your lungs, making those improvements. And then even just it can also be viewed like people who are on the older spectrum, like focusing on balance, focusing on joint stability. I've worked with people with, Parkinson's, who, depending on where they're at, like keeping the muscles moving and stuff can help delay or prevent like that onset, and can keep them strong, can keep them mobile. So, and that becomes a really big factor too, especially as we age and as a lot of things are progressing, is keeping autonomy, being able to go and do something, trying to keep a high quality of life. So it is definitely a broader term. It is also a newer term, but that's really kind of what it focuses on, is not just, outside of our traditional, I want to get strong, I want to lose weight. It's like, no, I just want to feel good.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to go and feel like my old self again. So that's kind of, what that in general means.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I would say like more and more people are like getting clued into this and thinking about it, like as in the general population. I think, noticing this shift recently. We're probably all noticing people really thinking about exercise as a way to keep them feeling good longer, like longevity, and being able to maintain their strength so that they can keep up with their hobbies and prevent injuries. And I think the old school wisdom maybe, and I think a lot of people still think this, but I think more and more people are realizing how important movement is to repair injury and conditions, versus people use this, is very fearful, like, oh, you don't want to hurt yourself more, you don't want to make it worse, like just rest, don't do anything. So I'm curious, before we like dive into that aspect of it, of those like populations you talked about, where do you feel like most passionate? Like what kind of clients do you like to work with most?
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely a range. I think one of the biggest benefits for me is being able to be a part of that journey of seeing someone like, I think we as trainers, we all experience it. We all kind of get that little rush of like, they met their goals, they're seeing progress. But on with like more of the medical fitness side, it's like they've been pain free for a week now. Like they were stuck in bed and dealing with this and didn't feel like they could go and do something. But now they're going to the grocery store, they're walking around at the grocery store, they're getting more social, they're feeling really good. And then like most of my background is definitely pretty heavy in working with injuries or coming out of rehab. That's where my go-to would probably be. I spent a little over 2 years working out of a physical therapy clinic, pretty much just doing that. And then so people coming out of physical therapy is usually, especially in the US, it's limited by insurance. So when you're going to PT, they're focused on, if your shoulder's hurt, they're focused on your shoulder. Once your shoulder is better, quote unquote better, then they're letting you go and maybe giving you a couple exercises to work on, where now we can take that and we can, okay, let's continue those exercises, but let's get you back to a full fitness routine. Let's get you back to moving, feeling good. Let's make sure we're still stabilizing the shoulders and stuff, but let's build on that. So I mean, there's also it's all really rewarding, like working with people with like cancer and stuff. Like they start feeling better, they start having more energy, they start feeling more like themselves. So there is definitely a lot of that. There's a range, but my go-to would be definitely like injury rehab and stuff.
Derek, I want to you when you started defining medical fitness, you talked about basically these people get this condition or people get injured and they go to their physio, right? And then, by the way, you have some clown insurance guy, third party, who doesn't even see like what the client needs and says, "Oh, we can only give 20 sessions, blah blah blah, make it better." That's a huge problem with physio. But basically, you're trying to bridge the gap between taking them from this clinic setting to then their active lifestyle, correct?
Yes.
So tell us, like, and there's an old joke, because I was in strength and conditioning for a very long time, and we had this joke between the physio staff, the athletic trainer staff, and the strength staff, and we would say that the only difference between a strength and conditioning coach and a physical therapist is load. And I know you love to lift, and I know you love to strength train and resistance train. So how do you use that as one of your tools to get these injured people more inflamed, etc., using that as a concept to make them heal from their tennis elbow or heal from their labrum tear, etc.?
Yeah, so I mean, especially for like the longevity and like long-term recovery, I think strength training is, one of the biggest tools that we do have. I think the biggest thing is, like you said, is load, is like it's scaling it up. It's taking them from where you're at to you're seeing that recovery, you're starting to feel better, you're starting to get movement in, but it's that proper scaling of like, we're not just going to jump in from, we're doing like band external rotations for 15 reps at like a 3-pound band to, okay, now we're going to go and do it with a cable at 20 pounds. Like, no, then you're not going to, jump right back into, overhead pressing like 185 pounds, or like, well, very few people can do that. But anyway, like, you're not just going to jump it back into it. It's understanding what that scaling looks like, and understanding like kind of the time frames too. Like, I think that's really important. Like, a lot of injuries can take, up to a full year to actually recover, especially like when you look at the shoulder joint. Like, there's a lot of muscles, there's a lot of stuff going on in there. Like, it can take a long time to fully recover. I mean, you know, and there's kind of, those stages. There's those, that initial injury phase, and then kind of that rehab phase. And then once you get to about the 6 month mark, you can kind of start pushing a little bit more. And then, yeah, about a year is when we can, kind of expect you to hopefully be back to where you were at before you got injured, or before, whatever surgery or whatever it might be. So kind of understanding like what those timetables look like, I think is really important, but also taking it step by step. I like to warn people to be careful when you're feeling really good, because a lot of people have the habit of, oh, I'm finally back, I'm feeling good, and then they go and they overdo it, and then it gets aggravated, and then they get set back.
Yeah, that's actually such a great point. I love what you said about understanding the timeline. I think most of the time when I have a client or I'm aware of someone who has an injury, their feeling is like, oh, I can't believe I'm still feeling this 3 weeks later. I'm like, 3 weeks is really not a long time to repair an injury. And like, they may not have even been actually taking steps towards repairing it. So I'm curious, like, and what you said, like some of these, I wanted to ask you about mistakes people make. And I think you're kind of alluding to some of them, like pushing the timeline, thinking, oh, everything's great, I'm going to go right back to what I was doing. So what would you say are like the most common mistakes you see when people like get injured or when they're repairing from an injury? And then what would you recommend? And we could, I don't want to overload you with questions, but I'd love to break down the steps of like, what should people do instead?
Yeah, so I think the initial mistake right off the bat, if people are making it, is not stopping. Like, if you do injure yourself, or like, if you tweak your back when you're deadlifting, like, don't try and just push through it. Like, stop, kind of like reassess, like see if you can like get back, like see what the movement feels like, and then kind of, if you can, start the kind of that recovery process as quickly as you can, even if it's diving into stretching or a little bit of like myofascial release. Like, see, depending on the injury, like if it is like an actual like injury and you need to go to a doctor, please go to your doctor. Go to your doctor. Don't delay. Like, if it's been like 2 or 3 days and something is still like hurting every time you move it, go see your doctor. But starting that recovering process, as soon as you can, whether that means, icing it or resting it. You can follow the whole kind of, RICE protocols: rest, ice, compression, elevate, depending on, where the injury is. But number one is, yeah, just stop, kind of like self-assess. Even if you're in the middle of a workout, you can go and you can try out, what else like might not, touch on it. Like, if it is your back, if you want to finish up your arms and it's not bothering your back, that's fine. But then following through with that recovery process, whatever, like, go ice it, let it calm down, see where you're at. Like, if it is something that continues to flare up or bothers you a lot, or you are in a lot of pain, again, go see a doctor and start that process, start the rehab process that way. Otherwise, if it is just like a pulled muscle or like tweak, like, give yourself time to rest. Like, if you want to keep working out, if it is your shoulder and you want to go and do legs, you can still go do legs. Like, there are things that you can do. There's ways to work around that. And I would say definitely, like, on the medical fitness side, a lot of it is like having that flexibility. Like, what can we do today? But then, like, when you are getting back into like your workouts and stuff, and you're trying to work it back out, I would say work on keeping mobility, keeping the, stretch it out a little bit, make sure it is thoroughly warmed up before you start your workout. Don't just try and jump back into where you were. Start at lighter weights. Again, talking about load, like, start at a lighter load, reduce the weight that you were doing. I know for me, and I know for a lot of people, like, taking that weight back down to like, oh, I can't do what I was doing for like the last 3 weeks can be really tough. But, drop the weight back down, see how your body's feeling, see if you're actually ready to, get back into it. But yeah, kind of just following and then, eat right, still trying to eat right. Sleep is super important, but kind of just going through all of those steps. And like we kind of already talked about with time, like, give yourself the time, like, give yourself, It might take more than a couple days. It might take a week. It might take 2 weeks. But let your body actually recover before you dive back into it. Like your workouts will always be there. You can letting it heal and then pushing it. You're gonna get way further than just trying to push through it.
So what you're saying is, if I'm deadlifting at the gym and I tweak my back, the answer is not go home right away, sit on the couch for a few days, eat some Papa John's pizza, stay up till midnight or 2 a.m. watching Netflix, and then never go back, right? I love what you said there, because you also said like you can work around stuff. And for our clients listening, they think that when they hurt themselves or tweak something that they can't do anything. They have to go sit on the couch. They have to rest. And do you agree with like there's this whole phenomenon around rest now, and like what is good rest and what is bad rest? Can you talk about active recovery? Should these people do zero? Should they go for walks? What should they do?
So rest is definitely very important. I would say, yeah, there's a lot of research on rest and recovery and what that looks like. I mean, rest and recovery is where our body we get a lot of our gains from that recovery period. But I think you're absolutely right. Like rest is not it's not giving up and going and doing nothing. Like doing active recovery, whether it's, like some light stretching, some myofascial release, whatever that looks like, go get a massage, like do some light foam rolling if it's not going to bother anything, use a massage gun, like whatever that might look like. Goes through some, either static stretching or active stretching, like whatever you can do. Go for a walk, like get movement in there, like get blood flow in there, like make sure that you are still moving. Like if it's painful, yeah, go and rest, like go and sit down and let it calm down. Or if it's like really aggravated, like go lay down or sit down, whatever that feels best. But no, you definitely don't have to give up. And I think this is one of the biggest things I talk about with a range of medical conditions too, is having that flexibility in your program. It kind of has to be built into it, because every day might look a little bit different. Whether it's an injury, like if your injury did flare up and you're not going to be able to do shoulders or anything with your arm, if it's your elbow or if it's your knee, like be willing to shift your workout to focus on what you can do. Or like with people with like heart conditions, like fatigue and that shortness of breath can be like a very real thing. So if you can't get it done today, that's okay. You can do it tomorrow. Like, or yeah, do some light stretching, like go for like a 5-minute walk, see what you can do. But having that flexibility built in, I think, is really important. One, also just for, just general fitness, flexibility in that routine can be really beneficial to that, building that consistency. There just needs to be a little bit more with medical conditions or with an injury. But no, like I'm a big fan of active recovery. Get movement in it. Same type of thing with like if you are icing, put some heat on it. Like the icing constricts blood flow. It's a natural anti-inflammatory. Get some heat on it afterwards, like after 15-20 minutes. Get some new blood in there. Like get all of that moving, and then do some light stretching, do some walking, do some light movements. Like our bodies are made to move, like even through like an injury, like still try and move, given that it's not putting you in a ton of pain.
Yeah, I think that is so key for people to hear, because I know that injuries, they can be really scary. I mean, it's just like a
Absolutely.
huge bummer. If you get injured, you're just, oh, man, am I out for the count? And what I've noticed, I luckily, knock on wood, have not had that many injuries, but in the times that I have, the thing that I realize pretty quickly is two things. One, I get a lot more creative with how I'm moving my body and what my workouts look like. It kind of breaks me out of my box of what I've been doing, which is kind of the silver lining. And two, you kind of have to become a bit of a scientist in experimentation on like, well, what does work, like you're saying, or what doesn't work, and what can I do versus what shouldn't I do right now? Can you kind of break down the steps of like, if somebody's injured and they're going, okay, now I need to figure out how do I keep moving in a way that's not excruciatingly painful? Like, what can I still doing? What feelings should they be like, okay, this is fine? Or what feelings should they be like, okay, this means that I shouldn't do this? Like, how do they determine that for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And I fully agree with you. Like there can be a lot of experimentation on like what, and not only for injuries, like for pretty much any medical condition, like what can I do? Where am I at? Where do I need to, what do I need to work on? Injury wise, I think a lot of it is one, working to understand your body. Like a lot of people, and as trainers, we work on this, but a lot of people don't have that connection to their body of like, you know, what is this pain? Is this pain from soreness? Is this pain from, like an actual injury? And I think understanding the difference between those two is really important. Like pain from like an injury versus pain from soreness, or like, pushing yourself in a workout, are two different things. One is going to go away. The other, pain from an injury is going to hang on. But I think that's too where like when you are starting that process, really work on like, kind of that mind body connection on like, if your knee is bothering you, like what movements are really aggravating the knee. Like if you're going to try out a squat, one, start with body weight. See how that feels. Does it feel good? Is it feeling better today? Is there a pain? And like, you may as well just not load up that knee to, start pushing it and potentially aggravate it. But also kind of understanding like some days, there might be a little bit of pain, but that's all it's going to reach, and you can start loading it a little bit. So kind of finding that balance of like, experimenting, like where am I at? Like how can I push it and how can I not? I always recommend, starting light and like working up. I think, a lot of us trainers, like we recommend that to pretty much anyone, like start light, work up. But it's very, very true in, more of like a rehab or like an injury setting. Like start light, start with body weight movements, see how you're feeling, like, and then work up, see, can you load a 20-pound goblet squat? Is that feeling okay? What depth can you get to? Like, are you only going halfway, and does that feel okay? Honestly, then embrace that. Like, only go halfway. You don't have to go all the way down. You're still going to get quad engagement. You're still going to get glute engagement from going halfway. You can start that process. So there's definitely a lot of experimentation, but be willing to also stop. And I think that's one of the hardest parts is like, okay, well, I'm going to try out all of these. Like, okay, but if in trying out all of those, are you going to aggravate it? Are you going to overdo it? Like, so there's finding that balance. And, start with, more of your foundational exercises, your squats, your deadlifts, your push, your pulls, like start with like your basic movements. A lunge is a foundational exercise too, but don't go straight into, a Bulgarian split squat when you're coming off of like a knee injury. Like understand like where you're actually at. So no, I definitely, I encourage everyone, get up, start moving. Again, our bodies are made to move. Like do what you can, but also do what you're comfortable doing. Like I know it kind of goes against the whole fitness, push yourself. Like you do want to push yourself, but sometimes pushing yourself is getting to the gym and doing what you're comfortable doing. And that's the point that you're pushing. It's not going and moving all the way, or even like going, leaving exhausted. Like it's just getting there. It's getting a routine done, and then it's going home and recovering.
Yeah, I think what you were saying about doing your own research as well, doing that experimentation on your own body. How does this feel for me? Building your team, finding a medical fitness professional or a fitness professional who is willing to invest their time and really trust you, listener, as the expert of your own body as well. But all of this, I think a lot of it comes down to like advocating for yourself and becoming an active participant in your health and in your fitness, because whether it's a doctor, a trainer, a physio, whoever it is, they're not the expert on your individual body and what you're feeling in your body. So much of it is you jumping in and diving in to figure this out for yourself as well. And part of that is building your team of people who are going to help you as well. So I love everything you just said about that, because I think so often it's hard. It's hard to do that work. And I think, especially when you're struggling with something, you don't necessarily want to, but in the end, in the long term, it's really going to serve you to put some of that effort in on the front end.
Absolutely. And a lot of these conditions feel really isolating. Like you feel alone. Like, like especially if you are self-advocating and you keep running into these barriers of people not listening or not getting it. Like it can be really tough to keep going, but I would definitely encourage you to keep going. Like, keep reaching out. Like, I mean, fitness professionals, we love working with people. We love helping people, like finding someone on that end, or, getting multiple opinions from a doctor, or checking out different physical therapists, checking out different physios. Like they all have different personalities. You do not have to stick with one person, and that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
so I mean, keep doing that. And it can be really beneficial to find someone who's been through something similar. Like a lot of people who don't deal with pain every day, like don't understand how debilitating that can actually feel. Or someone who deals with constant fatigue, like, on the outside they look like they're normal and they should be able to go and do this, but on the inside, and that's really common with like heart conditions, is that constant fatigue and not physically not having the energy to be able to go and do stuff. And so having that understanding and finding someone who can, connect with you on that level too, can be really beneficial.
Derek, you know what we used to do with our injured athletes? Because you guys talk about environment. Well, I had a sport performance place for a while, and if these kids got hurt, they would like immediately spiral down this wheel of depression because they couldn't
Yeah,
work out with their team. So what we would have them do is we'd have them go get their physical therapy exercises, but still come to the training session with the team at the gym and do their
absolutely.
rehab in the same building. And the amount of successes we had from that was unrelentingly powerful, shaping your environment because how you do life is who you do life with. So if you do get injured, if you do get diagnosed, still surround yourself with whatever lifestyle you were still in before and continue to do as much as you can. I think I'm beating a dead horse on this. I guess we all are. We're trainers though, right? We're preaching people to move as much as they can. But
Yeah,
anyways, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I wanted to get back to resistance training if that's cool. And I know you were you
yeah,
were you,
100%.
you were you were talking about the research with resistance training and medical fitness. I was just wondering if you can share some insight on like, is it good for like soft tissue? Is it good for the brain? Like, what's the research showing?
uh it's good for everything. I think more and more, like you can see articles pretty much weekly like talking about like resistance training. Yeah, it's good for one. There's the obvious, right? Like you're going to be stronger, you're going to be able to move more, your joints are going to be more stable, like you're going to have more energy. Like the research into like a mental health is exceedingly like positive, like in anxiety, depression, like getting moving, like that, building that mind body connection, being more present. Like that's something I'm actually really curious about where that is going to go in the future, and see if we're going to see a lot more incorporation of like not only talk therapy, but yeah, like talk therapy with, okay, here's your exercise prescription too, like go to the gym twice a week, get moving, go for a walk, like be active. Like our bodies were not made to sit in one spot and like just get caught up in everything going on. But resistance training and like neurological disorders, like one of the best ways we can, keep the nerves, working and running is using our body. So finding ways of doing, the resistance training is not only like, you know, engaging in muscle growth and hypertrophy, and joint stability and balance is also really important in people with neurological disorders. But like, yeah, it can, it can help with, it can help nerves grow. It can help with creating new neural pathways. Like it can help, if not prevent it, at least delay the response. And that's really, sometimes that's what it is about. It's about delaying the progression of, especially like Parkinson's is a really common one. Like there's not a cure. Like it's about delaying the progression of it and keeping, like I said earlier, like keeping the autonomy, keeping the ability to do what you can. But it's also, I will like to say, like you have to also work out in a safe environment. So like you know like be aware of like what you're doing. Like if balance is an issue, have something to hold on to. Like have a box. If you're doing squats, have a box behind you. Like also, I do like to throw that in there too for like people who do want to start and go and work with these medical conditions.
I have to tell a story here. Um, Parkinson's. I had a client pass away from Parkinson's. God bless you, Philip Bogetto, but he was 74 when he passed, and I worked with him for about 8 years, and he was he was convinced that bicep curls, I hope this isn't too explicit, bicep
No.
curls led him to get off Viagra. And he was convinced.
I believe that 100% actually.
He was convinced because we wouldn't do much. We would mainly just talk and like laugh, but we would always do our biceps in front of the mirror.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was greater hormones, whatever, but he was convinced. He would tell me his wife, of blessed memory, she passed away too. He was convinced that he was starting to get more erections because of these bicep pumps. And I don't know what the science was. I don't know what the research is saying, but I just said, Phil, we're going to do our bicep curls all day, every day. I'd see it 3 days a week. And even if that's all we did, it was what's best for him. It kept him going. But to get to your point, I mean, it was a slow progression. It was a very sad regression, I guess, of his symptoms.
Yeah.
But man, he I wish he was still today. He showed up every day for himself. I wish that's what people did more often.
Yeah, I do too. Especially when life gets hard and like, yeah, I mean, you're going through that, like, and honestly, like the people that like in my experience like have come and train with me and like do that, like if they're, I mean, on our end, there are the hard days where either they can't come or like they're in pain or like there's something off. But it is you see that honestly, as cliche it is, the triumph of the human spirit. Like they're showing up, they're doing it, they're pushing through. Like you said, some days we get started, we do a couple of band exercises, and then we just sit and chat because that's what's important in that moment.
Mhm.
But like it really is really rewarding, and for them too, like it is really rewarding. Like you get stronger. I mean, the whole point is that maintain whatever quality of life you can achieve, and so being a part of that is definitely rewarding.
And apparently you also get more erections too.
Biceps.
Apparently, bicep curls.
Yes. Bicep.
Yep.
Who knew?
We just solved everything.
I love it. Should we do some overrated, underrated? Or I know Joey really has like a bone to pick with Derek because Derek like just blasted him out of the water on the pull-up challenge.
Dude.
So our listeners know because we talked about the pull-up challenge when we were doing it. So if you've been listening, you know that we did a little company fitness challenge. Derek and I were on the same team. So obviously we won. And Derek just like, it was unreal. He could have been on a team by himself, and I think he still probably could have won. Any hot tips, Derek?
First of all, I had no idea I could do that many. Like I want to start off this way. Like I'm very much on the heavier side. Like I'm 245. Like so I had no idea like I could even do that. But the biggest thing actually, and ironically enough, it actually connects into this. It was just like I started off like just like doing what I can, like do 2 sets of 3 here, do a set of 2, a set of 3, a set of 4, like, and then over the days, because it lasted 14, 15 days, like it just built up to, I think I ended up at like 1,500.
It just snowballed quickly.
I think it did. By 10 days in, it then grew to sets of 5, sets of 8, sets of 10 that I could get like concurrently. But I just do 2 or 3 sets at a time, and then every time, like, because I just work out in my garage, so every time I'd walk by, I'd be like, oh, let's just grab a couple more. Like, and then it just incorporated into my workout. I stopped doing arms in my workouts because my arms were dead. Like I eat to this day. It's been almost 2 months. Every time I go to do a pull up, I can still feel it in my elbows. Like before I even start, like my arms and my hands were done.
Yeah, Derek, I have a pull-up bar behind me. Every time I would even look at the pull-up bar, my tendonitis would creep up on me. I remember I was even considering getting some dry needling done on my lats. Golly, man. It wasn't even a competition for the listener. They beat us by like 3,000 pull-ups or something like that.
It was, yeah. And I think I even stopped like a day or two because I could just not do any more pull-ups. I was done. I was like, should I try for more? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But no, I had no idea that I started off and I was like, okay, well, let's shoot for like 50 a day or so. And that first day, I think I got like 100 or so kind of throughout the day. I was like, I think I could do more.
Dude, you're a great physical therapist trainer, because if I'm going in and I'm seeing a big jack dude as my physical therapist, I'm like excited. You never want too frail of a physical therapist guiding you on the way to strength, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I was going to choose a PT, well, I know my PTs that I would use, but if I was going to choose a PT, I'd definitely go for one that, at least looks like they, work out a little bit. Same thing with doctors. Like, doctors are, not always great at focusing on their own health, but like if you can find ones that finding a PT or a doctor who actually takes care of themselves can be really beneficial.
Lead
That
from
they
the
understand fitness.
Yeah.
Because they don't all really understand fitness. And yeah, I will say I've been given some pretty sketch tips from PTs, specifically pelvic floor PT,
Oh, that's
who
a
told
whole different
moi
episode.
who told
Yeah.
moi not to lift over 50 pounds ever again. I was like, my kid is going to be over 50 pounds pretty soon. Like, what? So it's just, you check around to get some second opinions and do your research, like we said.
Yeah. I mean, it's also understanding your own body. Like a lot of those recommendations are coming from, from like recommendations or just from research. And that research can be applicable, but there are boundaries on that. So it is understanding that too. Like figure out what you can
Yeah.
do and how you can push yourself. And so that you have a better understanding of that.
Derek, I hate doing it. We only got like 5 minutes left. I always get so angry when I look at the time. Buddy, please come back again, and maybe we can talk about the role of Western medicine and the maybe misunderstanding of fitness for people with disorders or with injuries. But let's conclude with some rapid fire overrated, underrated, okay? And
let's go for it.
The way we usually do this is Darian and I will give you a topic, and you say overrated, underrated, and give a quick explanation, and boom, we'll go on to the next one, okay?
Yeah.
But I'll kick us off, all right? I want to talk about using ice for recovery. Overrated or underrated?
Underrated, especially initially. Like long term, hit or miss, but get ice on it. It's a natural anti-inflammatory. I'd rather have you do ice than like ibuprofen if you want to talk about medicine. So yeah, go get ice on it, let it calm down. Just make sure you take that ice off and you get new blood flow in there.
Yeah, okay. So mine is going to be using heat, because I think people tend to think rice, which is ice, but heat is pretty important too. So overrated, underrated.
Overrated. So heat is soothing and it can feel good. If used in conjunction with ice, I'd say it's underrated. But in general, people who just go and put heat on it, they're not actually doing that much. It might help you feel good and like relax out a little bit. But inflammation wise, if that's what is going on, go for ice.
So you think, but use both is like the ideal, alternating.
Yes. If you can, use ice 15, 20 minutes, take it off, put heat on. It'll help speed it up. You can do that a couple times. But if you're just going and using heat, it's not going to do that much for you.
Okay, how about stretching to prevent injury? Overrated, underrated?
Overrated. So mobility in the joints and stability is super important. Doing just like straight static stretching, I think people get too reliant on it. I would say go through a solid warm up on your workouts, whether that includes some static stretching or active stretching, or moving into dynamic stretching. But if we're talking just static stretching, I'd say probably more on the overrated side.
This isn't quite exactly overrated, underrated, but if somebody had time only for a warm up or only for like a stretch at the end,
that's a good one.
Which one should they do?
I would have them warm up any day over finishing up with stretching.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, Derek, this isn't really one either, but I want to ask you, machines or free weights?
Oh, I'd have people on free weights all day. If I was going to build out a gym, I really wouldn't. I mean, like cables are fine, but like actual like seated machines, your free weights, you're going to get so much more core engagement. You're going to get so much more out of the full body, the stabilizer muscles. The biggest problem with machines is a lot of people sit down in them and then they relax their core and then they go and move however they want to. or it's on a track. So it's very limited, like it's very limited motion. So I would say free weights all day.
Especially a machine bicep curl for people with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
The more bicep curls, the better, really.
Bicep curls all day. That's all you need. That's the whole point of this podcast, right?
Yeah, that was our main takeaway. Well, Derek, this was awesome. Thank you so much. Seriously, this was a very inspiring conversation. I really like thinking about fitness in terms of like, how are we really truly improving people's health and longevity? And yeah, I would really love for you to come back and we can continue this conversation even more.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So yeah, thank you again. This was an awesome episode.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys for having me on.
Happy New Year, Derek.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you so much for listening to our episode with Derek on medical fitness. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you would like to get matched with a personal trainer through Trainwell, you can click the link in our show description and bio. You can also send us a message by clicking the link there as well, and we would love to hear from you.
We hope you guys all start moving and using resistance training as your go-to to help with your movement. Take care, guys.